All right, so now we are ready to go, and it is a special time of year. It really is. Some would say it's the most wonderful time of year. It's shopping season. How many of you partook this weekend? Yeah, you won't admit it. Your bank accounts tell a different story. You know, it is amazing. I saw a statistic this morning that said this year, this is not all time, this is just this year. On Black Friday this year, online sales topped $5 billion. $5 billion. Thanksgiving Day was $3 billion. So we are close to adding in Cyber Monday to breaking the 10 billion mark. At one point on Black Friday, online sales were so robust, it was $1 million a minute. Unbelievable. You know, I don't want to condemn anybody because I myself am an online shopper. And it's enjoyable, it's easy to do, and hopefully, prayerfully, we got things that we need, but we all admit that we probably didn't, right? And so it's interesting because we have to look at this and we see all of the shopping and consumerism and money that's spent and how tied up it is with a holiday that's predicated on giving thanks. It seems a bit ironic almost, right? I came across this meme that I thought was pretty apropos. Yeah. You know what's fantastic is if you've ever got the opportunity to preach or to public speak, when you put up something that you want people to read, you can very quickly tell who reads faster than everybody else, right? Yeah, there's somebody who we're still waiting on in here, hasn't finished. No, it's true though, right? We have a holiday that's built on giving thanks, and we sort of wrap it all up with this shopping and consumerism that I think in many ways has almost overtaken the purpose of the holiday. Why do we struggle with giving thanks so much? I think that for many of us, it's not very natural. In fact, most of us have had to teach children to be thankful, right? And we ourselves have had to be taught. And even if we haven't had kids, we have seen and experienced that moment when a child receives something. And all of the adults sort of pause and lean in. And we wait that beat. And we're waiting to see if the child is going to have the response that we want them to have. And as a parent, I have to imagine that is a terrifying second for you. Because now publicly, people are going to find out how good a parent you are, right? And so we wait and we pause, and the kid pauses, and when he takes just a second too long, what do the parents do? What do you say? And then the child gives the most sincere and thoughtful response. Thank you. We're just not very grateful people. Now, I know that there are some of you who are amazing at this, but I've got to feel that you're in the minority. Most of us struggle with being grateful. We're just not very thankful. We have to be reminded. We have to be told. And so now we've kind of gotten conditioned to it as adults. We're pretty good now at least having that instant response that we're supposed to have. When somebody does something for us, we're very quick to generally say thank you back to them. But to truly be grateful mentally in my heart, well, we still struggle. We still have to be reminded. We have to be told. And those are even just for the things that we receive physically here, let alone when it comes to our relationship with God. That God, like the parent that you all are, reminds his children to be thankful. That the scriptures are filled with phrases like these. Give thanks to the Lord, for he's good. In everything, give thanks, for this is God's will. Over and over again, God tells his children, be thankful people. Thank me for what you have in everything. Because we're just not very good at it. You know, one of the most, I could say, popular, maybe famous examples of this is in Luke chapter 17. This is sort of the go-to verse if you ever do a Thanksgiving sermon, right? This is the example that we pull out often. And if you are familiar with this story, we have 10 people who are afflicted with leprosy. They see Jesus and they ask him to heal them. Jesus tells them to go off to see the priest. And while they're on their way walking to see the priest, they recognize and look down and see that they have been healed. 9 of them continue on their way, and 1 returns to come back to Jesus and to thank him for what he's done. Do you remember what Jesus says to them? To the one, he says, "Were there not 10 cleansed? But the 9, where are they? Was not one found who returned to give glory to God, except this foreigner?" The one who returns is a Samaritan. Jesus often uses, or the New Testament often uses, the opportunity to point out the good deeds that Samaritans do, a little bit to stick it to the Hebrews, right? Just a little bit. To show the example that this is what we're to be. This is who we are to be. And so we hear lessons like this, and oftentimes on a day that's close to the Thanksgiving holiday, we talk about how we're supposed to be the 1 and not the 9. Because we need to be reminded of this so constantly and fervently, to just give thanks. That's who we're supposed to be. And so Jesus gives us this, to me, it almost seems more like a parable. It's an account, but it's a lesson. It's a message. It's a warning. To be people who give thanks. But that's never been very satisfactory to me. You know that I'm somebody who wants to see things from another level. I want to go just a little bit deeper. Because it's not enough for us to go, "Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm supposed to be thankful," and then we go and we leave and we have lunch and do our other things in our life. Because that's the problem, isn't it? The problem is that we have to keep being reminded. So, okay, we can have a lesson this morning where I remind you, be thankful, and now let's sing. And everybody's like, "Hey, he's done early, I'm thankful for that." But that's not enough. That's not enough, because we need to be reminded. Why do we need to be reminded? Why are we so bad at this, people? Why are we so bad at being thankful? I want to figure this out, because I think we can't fix the problem until we know what the root problem is. So we're reminded to be thankful, but why? Why are we so bad? And then it hit me, and I don't know if there's no scientific fact to prove this, but I think for me, this is what makes sense to me. I think I'm not very thankful all the time, consistently, 24 hours a day, because I don't feel very blessed. Now, your brain says, "Whoa, wait a second. I know I'm blessed. I know. When I think about everything that we have, when I think about all of the things that we're able to do, when I look at my life, I go, man, I'm absolutely blessed. And so that can't be the problem. Of course I'm blessed. But notice what I said. I think that we don't feel blessed. I think in our brains we know we are. Because we see statistics like this. If you have consistent access to clean water, to food, to shelter, and clothing, you are better off than 75% of the world. I don't know if that's true or not. It sounds good. It seems reasonable. But we know facts like that, right? We know that the poor in America are still better than any other country. We know that we have the physical necessities that are so taken care of here that are not taken care of other places, and we are blessed by that. We know that we have life, and we have family, and we have love, and God continues to shower upon us all these things. We know that in our brains, but the problem is that our brains don't work all the time because our hearts are too big, right? We are feeling emotional creatures. We are. And the best example of it, when we get to see it in its rawest form, are our teenagers. Because they are emotional. I love you guys. But it's true. Now, as we adults, we get to tamper that down, and we can kind of sort of hide it more, and we, kind of become more rational and thoughtful, and I think about things. But guess what, folks? At the drop of a hat, you are all heart. You're all emotion. And so in our brains, we say, yes, I know I am blessed. But in our hearts, we're like, really? I think it looks like this. What's the kid thinking? Is he thinking, oh, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, guardian, whoever cares for me, thank you so much for giving me this food. Thank you so much for this apple and this juice, for the energy that it's going to provide me, for the fact that I don't have to worry about what's on my plate, that I get to consume this and be blessed by this. Is that his thought? No! He says, I want cookies and Coke. I don't care what's on my plate. I want what's on his plate. He's not feeling very blessed. But you're an adult. You're thoughtful. You're rational. And you look at it and you would say, Johnny, Timmy, Billy, whatever his name is, be thankful for what you have. But that's not what he's thinking. Because in his heart, he wants something else. Because he doesn't feel blessed by the things that he has in front of him. Give the kid a week, he'll want the apple, right? If he doesn't eat anything else. But in this moment, he doesn't feel blessed. And I'm afraid that that's us. I know that I'm blessed, but I don't feel like it. I know when I stop that God has given me everything good in my life. But when it comes to my day-to-day, my moment-to-moment, my second-to-second life, I don't always feel it. I just don't feel it. Fortunately, we have something in common because we struggle with this. I think maybe the folks in our society who are best at this are our elderly, our seniors. There seems to be something about aging that allows you to appreciate every moment more. To appreciate the fact that you are able to get out of bed. That you are able to come here. That you have family, that you have loved ones, that you have these little, minute, tiny things in your life. I think that you are a good example for us. But for most of us, we just don't feel like this until we are reminded of it. And then when in the remembering, we go, well, I'm thankful. But then, life goes on. And we don't feel it anymore. And that's why I want to introduce you to this man named Asaph. Asaph lived at the time of David. He was a musician. He was blessed with musical gifts and abilities and talents, but he was also a Levite. And so Asaph, through some connection, whether it was his notoriety as his ability or through family connections, was blessed by David to receive an incredible honor. David, of course, was the warrior king. The king like the Israelites have never had before or never since. And David did some amazing things in the history of Israel, including bringing the ark back to Jerusalem. I suppose I said back, but that's not really true. He brought the ark to Jerusalem for the first time to make it a permanent place for God. But if you recall, David doesn't get to build the temple. That's going to be his son. But he does set up the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. And it's glorious celebration for the ark to be returned to a prominent place for the people. And so Asaph is blessed in that he gets to be in charge of the music. David takes Asaph and other musicians and stations them outside the tabernacle and says, this is your job, to sing songs of thanksgiving, to praise God with your music, with the sole focus of thanking him for blessing his people. What an honor this was for Asaph. This was a big deal. He got to be the chief of these musicians and have this very important moment and place. Now, Asaph is going to continue in his story, and when the temple is built by Solomon and the ark is moved there, Asaph moves with it. And he now becomes the choir director of the temple. He becomes the music director. He is in charge of all of the beautiful music that would be played before the Lord. But something happens in the late days of Solomon. Solomon, the man who is blessed with wisdom, blessed with wealth and riches beyond any comprehension, starts to turn away from God. He's influenced by his wives to worship foreign idols. And Israel strays away from the God. Now, the punishment comes after Solomon's days, but during the time of Solomon, things get bad too. Because in order to keep up this lifestyle, this opulence, this money, Solomon oppresses his people. He creates slave labor forces, and he mistreats them. And it's hard and suffering. And in place of this, where we have all of this money and wealth, and we have this disparity between different groups of people, we have corruption that arises. And so the late days of Solomon are corrupt and are tough and are difficult. And if you don't believe me, you see what happens next when his son Rehoboam takes over. It causes division in the nation because of how harsh Solomon was. But then we find Asaph living in these days. So he comes from this time of David and the conquering and the victories that Israel and the successes they had to the great early days of Solomon. But now he finds himself later in his life in this corrupt system between the haves and the have-nots. Now, Asaph is a Levite. He doesn't have any land. He is at the mercy of the people and the money that they give to the temple to survive. And so Asaph looks at this society and he starts to get a little bitter. Because he looks at the pious, God-devoted life that he led, and he looks at the wealth and the opulence of the people out there who are not following God, and he's going to struggle to make sense of that. But instead of me telling you what he says, I think it's better for us to see what he says in Psalm 73. Don't want to blow your minds this morning, but David doesn't write all the Psalms, okay? Asaph's going to write 12. Asaph records more of God's words to us than Peter, than some of the minor prophets. But he might be a name that you haven't heard before. Listen to what he says in Psalm 73. Surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. That's his brain. Yes, of course God is good. But as for me, here's the heart. My feet had almost slipped. I had nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong. They are free from common human burdens. They are not plagued by human ills. Therefore, pride is their necklace. They clothe themselves with violence. From their callous hearts comes iniquity. Their evil imaginations have no limit. They scoff and they speak with malice. With arrogance they threaten oppression. Their mouth lay claim to heaven, and their tongues take possession of the earth. Therefore their people turn to them and drink up waters in abundance. They say, how would God know? Does the Most God, High God, know anything? This is what the wicked are like, always free of care. They go on amassing wealth. Surely in vain I have kept my heart pure and have washed my hands in innocence. All day long I have been afflicted, and every morning brings new punishments. You see the struggle inside of Asaph. He knows in his brain that he has been blessed and cared for, but in his heart he's like, I don't feel very blessed. Look at these other people. They've done wicked things. They're arrogant. They're prideful. They scoff at the blessings that God gives them. And what do they have? Everything. They're rich. They're healthy. They're successful. What? I have been committed to God, and yet they receive the blessings. Doesn't it feel like Asaph is that kid in the picture? He's looking over at them with their cookies and Coke and saying, why don't I have that? I don't feel very blessed. Okay, this is the point of the sermon where we walk away very depressed if we end now. But thankfully he continues. He says, if I had spoken out like that, I would have betrayed your children. Remember, he's a priest. When I tried to understand all this, it troubled me deeply. He's struggling and wrestling with this till I entered the sanctuary of God. And then I understood their final destiny. Surely you place them on slippery ground. You cast them down to ruin. How suddenly are they destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. They are like a dream when one awakes. When you arise, Lord, you will despise them as fantasies. When my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was a brute beast before you. Yet I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward, you take me into glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire beside you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Those who are far from you will perish. You will destroy all who is unfaithful to you. And here's the line, folks. But as for me, it is good to be near God. I have made the sovereign Lord my refuge, and I will tell of your deeds. In another translation, it looks like this. The nearness of God is my good. Oh, I love that phrase. Because what Asaph is going through is us. He's saying, man, on the day-to-day basis, I don't feel very blessed. My stomach is empty. I'm not rich. I don't have good health. And look at all those people doing all the bad things they're doing, but they have everything. And when I look at that, I go, I got nothing. I'm not blessed. How is Asaph supposed to be thankful when his brain is in that place? How is he supposed to be thankful when his heart feels that way? How is he supposed to be thankful when he looks out there and says, God is blessing them for all the bad that they've done, and I've done good, and I have nothing? How is Asaph supposed to be thankful? He can't. But he turns, and he says, nothing on this earth matters. Yeah, they're blessed, in quotation marks, on earth, but what a slippery slope that is. That Asaph's eyes are open to see God is blessing him with something greater. And that, in fact, the blessings, or the supposed blessings that he thought they had, were fantasies, were not real. Echoing Solomon's words in Ecclesiastes, right? Everything is meaningless without God. Major paraphrase by me there. But that's the essence of the book. Asaph's eyes are open to the fact that he is in fact blessed, but not in the way that he was looking for. Not in the way that he thought. And so he gives us this line to say, the only thing that I need is to be near God. That is my good. How would that change our lives if we made that our mantra? How thankful and grateful a people would we be if the only good thing you needed was to be near God? I want to introduce you to one more gentleman. This time we'll let him tell it in his own words. I don't know his name, but I like his thoughts. Watch this.
I was born on a farm away south of here almost 90 years ago. Sometimes it feels like 100 years. Sometimes just last week. I'm a fruit farmer. God puts the fruit in the trees. I get it to the people. I take a lot of pictures. Helps me see longer. Helps me hold on to things that would rather be getting on their way. It was my daddy bought me my first camera. Told me it was a time machine. I seen him cry over a photograph or two. Photo of his mama. One of his brother died when he was little. I met my Hattie when we were both 15. Had to wait a few years more to get married. She was a soft creature, used to fit right up under my arm if we were both standing without shoes on, and she'd look up at me in that way that was hers every day until the day she died. She gave me 3 good kids. The boys strong, and the girls were sweet like her. Never had much to speak of in the way of money, but I never felt poor. I always felt like God gave me more than I knew what to do with. I got this house and the farm. I got my eyes to see the trees put on their best colors in the fall. I got these legs that move me over my land. I got these arms that can still remember the heft of my babies. These hands that know soft and rough. My ears still hear the music that put the shivers under my hair and down my back. My heart still bumps inside me, talks to my God, tells him my troubles, thanks him for what he gave me. I don't know what else to be but grateful. Honest, I just don't.
We have to live as people who are near God, because we will never be satisfied in this life without it. I've been blessed to be able to travel, to go to many parts of our country and other parts of the world. But one thing really struck me very strongly was when I was in Beverly Hills. Because as people, we hold up certain ideals. If I only had enough money, if I only had fame, if I only had power. But as I'm driving down this street in Beverly Hills, on the side of the road, parked in front of somebody's house, just straight out on the street, is a $200,000 Ferrari. Parked on the street in front of somebody's home. If you and I had a $200,000 Ferrari, it would be under glass. And it made me think, this is what happens. It doesn't matter whether you have $10 in your pocket or 10 million. There's always somebody who will have more. There's always going to be something more that you'll want to buy. There's always some level of success or fame that you'll want to achieve. The most miserable people in our country are the... And so as we continue to keep striving for things and for stuff and the things that we recognize as blessings, oh man, I can never achieve everything. If those are the blessings that I seek, I will forever be ungrateful. This is the root problem. It's not that we need to be reminded to be thankful. It's that we need to be reminded that the only blessing we need is the nearness of God. That tomb is empty, and yet we live like people as if it's not. Let's use this time for not another reminder to be thankful. Please be that. But use this time to grow closer to God. If you're here this morning and you haven't had the opportunity to receive the greatest gift that you will ever be given, the gift of grace, to go down in the waters of baptism, to receive that gift, to be brought up in newness of life, today's the day. But if you're like most of us, as Christians in our walk, to continue to struggle to live in a society that promotes different values than what you and I have ascribed to, let's renew ourselves today. If there's any way that we can be of help, this is a good time, but not the only time, as we stand and sing.